I haven't quite put my finger on why the hype about AI has made people so much more receptive to saying, oh, let AI help me fix or help me solve this.
I believe wholeheartedly it's FOMO because that's all you hear. If you do one search on ChatGPT on TikTok, you're going to see the first thing that pops up is like, hey, don't be late to the game.
Meet Tersh Blissett, co-founder and chief experience officer at Trade Automation Pros. He is also the chief executive officer at Service Emperor. He helps home service professionals use AI and automation to eliminate repetitive tasks and free up time to grow their businesses.
Just a curious question for you. Are you dabbling yet in AEO or GEO?
We've actually done a lot of research. These AI tools, the first thing they want to look for is the price. If they can recommend your price over just random prices that are on the internet, then they're going to do that.
There's some new protocols that were created sort of the middle of last year that will start to be very popular soon, enhancing you from just search engine optimization to AI engine optimization there. One of the things that they've built is... All right, everybody, welcome back to the AI for Business Owners podcast, sponsored by St. AI. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Torello. If you're an SMB and you are looking for ways to take advantage of AI and not just buy an indiscriminate tool, head on over to St.AI and get in touch. We'll see what we can do to help you out. My guest today is Tersh. Tersh, go ahead and tell the audience who you are and what you got going on.
Hey, man. First off, I appreciate the invitation and
You're welcome.
I'm excited to talk to you. So my name is Tersh Blissett and I own 2 HVAC companies, 2 plumbing companies, 1 electrical company, and have been building automations for the trades, the skilled trades since like 08. And I do a podcast, Service Business Mastery, which I talk a lot about business in the podcast or in the trades world. And that led to starting another company that strictly is, it builds automations for the trades.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you because I actually think it's a bit of a niche that probably doesn't get a lot of traction. I know your podcast is trying to help. I get everything. I don't mean that negatively, but like, I don't think the mainstream press is covering it often. And I'd love to, get the audience to see and hear what you've got going on. And especially if there's anyone out there that can relate, that would be super valuable. How did you get from having a service business to doing an AI? Like, what was that journey like? Obviously more than a 5-second thing, but that's not common, right? So how did that get there?
Basically, so long story short, I was in the Air Force and went through like processes and procedures. And then I left the Air Force and actually went to school for engineering. And so very rigid, but I didn't like the job. Like I didn't like where I was working. I was at a chemical plant. I didn't enjoy it. And I actually had a friend of mine who was doing air conditioning. He was a service technician for a local HVAC company. And I was like, I think I want to do what you're doing because I like tagged along with him a little bit. We were car buddies. So we were always working on cars together and got chatted about it. And I got into the trades. Like ultimately I came in and I just really enjoyed it. And it was a natural niche for me. And after being there for a couple of years, I was promoted to be a service manager. And one of the things that happened was they're like, here's the Excel spreadsheet. You need to put down all the technicians' time for the yesterday and when they arrived on a job versus when they left the job. Like basically how efficient were they? But everything was a manual process with a manual calculator, and it was wild. And it took me about a month of doing this every day for the previous day before I was like, I spend from 8 a.m. when the guys leave the shop finally till 10:30, 11 o'clock every single day, manually going to this website, pulling GPS reports, and then and I was like, there's got to be another way of doing this. And so that's whenever I really found how to do Excel spreadsheet automations. And that's where it started. And it was like it's a snowball effect of like, now I really enjoy this. And it ultimately I got to where I was searching for things to automate because I had automated so many things in my life. Little things like bill pay, spend 5 minutes to set up your bill pay and then let it automatically pay your electric bill every month. Like it's going to be a pretty consistent amount, or your cell phone bill or whatever. So That's kind of how it started. And then when I started my podcast in 2016, I was talking about business, and naturally I started talking about automations because that's where I thrive. And so people started asking me questions like, "Hey, how did you automate that with this CRM?" And because like a lot of us use the same CRM, or a handful of CRMs in the trade. And so I was talking about how to pull information from one place and put it in the other, and talk back and forth between QuickBooks and stuff like that. And that turned into people like, "Hey, you need to create a course on how to do this." I was like, "Oh, that's another task to add to my job," And so I eventually did, and basically I gathered information from podcasts, and that's the initial courses started that way, and it turned into a whole other business. Trade Automation Pros came from that. It's like it's Trade Automation Pros. They're like that actually was created just prior to like the AI to the public boom. Like there was a lot of
Okay.
AI out there before, but
Right.
the actual general public, ChatGPT came around. That's whenever things really took off and have taken off. And I'm doing like on sites on a monthly basis now, where I'm just going to people's contracting businesses and saying, "Hey, can we make this more efficient? How do we do this? And do we use an AI tool? Do we do automations, or is it purely like you need to update your processes?"
It's a similar vein to what we're doing because, and I've said this a few times on the podcast, right? That AI is not the solution to every problem. In the end, I don't necessarily think it matters much if the customer thinks it's AI and it ends up not like it's not like we're not selling them the thing that they need. There's no chicanery involved. Right. We're just solving the problem and providing the value. But there's quite a number of instances where it's not actually AI at all. It's just software. And part of what I say almost every podcast now is that realistically, AI is just another explanation or convoluted way of saying software because in the end, that's all we're doing. It's just software. But the idea, I haven't quite put my finger on why the hype about AI has made people so much more receptive to saying, oh, let AI help me fix or help me solve this, or like I'm willing to invest in you building an AI solution. I don't know
I
what,
think so honestly for
because
me,
it was a lot harder to sell like plumbing company on a custom software. Like that was not happening 5 years ago. Few and far between.
yeah, yeah,
But
you
now
don't have
suddenly
to.
they're all like AI, and I can't figure out exactly why.
I believe wholeheartedly it's FOMO, and like because that's all you hear. If you do one search on ChatGPT, on TikTok, or anywhere on your phone, because your phone's monitoring anything you're
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
you're going to see the first thing that pops up is like, "Hey, don't be late to the game. You have to be here or else you're gonna be left behind." And, to an extent, that's true, but, it's the same way with email. Like, when email first came about, like, there were people that were very hesitant to get on board with it. And then I remember in '05, I think it was '07, yeah, it was '07 when I became a service manager, and we were just getting a website, and back then it was a pretty major investment. I remember we spent like $100,000 at that company doing a website, and now you can have any of your Vibe tools out there that just spin up a website instantly, and, granted, it might not be the best converting site, but it's
Yeah.
there.
But if you're carrier, 100 grand on a website makes some sense because you're doing more than, but if you're Dave's plumbing and heating, or like, and I'm not trying to make that little, I'm trying to
Sure.
make that
Right.
sound small
Yeah.
like it is. You can go to WordPress and have a web, like you don't need a major investment.
And so, like, I
But
built.
that wasn't 2007. You're totally like in 2007, there
Yeah.
were no tools. You're out of luck.
Yeah, oh yeah, there was no website builders and stuff like that,
Right.
but in 2014 is when I started my first HVAC company, and I built the website for that company, and I have not updated it since 2017 or 18, but it still ranks number 1 on the
Wow.
page. Now, there's even been updates to some of the pages, and it's like, it says, Lipsum Aurum or whatever, Aurum,
Yeah.
that
Greek,
and
Greek
that,
text. Yeah.
where it's done the update, and it has that in the metadata on the main screen. So it's like, how is this thing ranking? It's because I just watched YouTube and was like, how do I build this the most efficiently as possible? And I spent a lot of time doing it for just my website. I learned a ton, and it still ranks.
And one of the reasons that it ranks, just to help you out from the understanding perspective, is the amount of time it's been in the index, right? So even if you haven't updated the content in a long time, it's still around, which means the business is relevant. The business has a 10 plus year. All of that adds to why you show it, et cetera. The other side of that equation, just to think it through, right? Unlike, a dynamic interactive website that you need to change, daily, like a news site or maybe a shopping site, service provider site really needs to get across some very basic information. And then, here's how to contact who I am, whatever. And so once that exists, there are not a lot of customers who want to sit on your website for half an hour reading. Like, it's just not the way the world works, right? No one has the time. I see the name seems like I've heard it before. Friends recommended it. They're in the area. Okay, let me call them. And that's about as far as it goes. Maybe send an email, right? That's kind of what's going on. They're well reviewed. They're well regarded, those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the other aspect of that is we make blog posts bi-weekly or monthly. I try to stay consistent because Google likes,
it does.
but ultimately, like, sure, it's written to the audience, to the client, but at the same time, it's being done ultimately so that Google will keep you at the top of the chart. Yeah, for ranking purposes. But just by happenstance, if a customer reaches out and does a Google search and then wants to read the article, it still needs to make sense. So
Indeed. Yeah. It can't be all lorem ipsum or it'll not make sense.
exactly.
Just a curious question for you. Obviously there's an SEO component to it, a search engine optimization component there. Are you dabbling yet in AEO or GEO?
Yeah. So just
For the audience, right? Generative or agentic. Basically, how do you get ChatGPT to respond with, here's a plumber in your area? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so we've actually done a lot of research. We actually put on an event October of last year in Savannah. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it. I actually I'm in Savannah, from Savannah, Georgia, and that's where home base is. But we put on an event called Tap into the Future in October of last year, and part of that event, we had a guy named Marcus Sheridan on the come present. He was our keynote, and his whole premise is put your pricing on your website. He had a pool company, and so it used to be put your prices on your website, create a blog post, like a best of blog post, but don't put your name, like don't put you on the list. And that worked amazingly for SEO rankings. But whenever it came to AI rankings and search, what he found was that his company was no longer being listed in the list, but they're taking his list off of his website as the recommendation. So he was like, "Oh, I gotta change this up." So then they put in there, like, their company was the best, but then here's the other, 9 companies do a great job as well. And so then they found that these AI tools, the first thing they wanna look for is the price, because if they can recommend your price over just random prices that are on the internet, then they're gonna do that, especially if it's somebody in your local market area. And then the other thing is putting those best of lists together and the FAQ sections. And for a while there, we were being told to put FAQs all over Google Business Profile, but then I guess they did away with that. I don't know if they're bringing it back or whatever, but
Yeah, Google changes the game, if you will,
yeah,
often,
they
right?
do so much. As soon as you figure it
Because
out, change
there's
it.
so many companies out there that are basically gaming it
Yep.
and offering it as a service. I know you know this because you've probably been pummeled by it. Another tidbit I can give you that'll probably help make sense with respect to enhancing you from just search engine optimization to, AI or agentic or generative engine optimization. There's a bunch of different names. They're all talking about the same thing. There's some new protocols that were created sort of the middle of last year that will start to be very popular soon. They're all about agentic shopping.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they've built is a secure transaction model so that the agent can actually make purchases on behalf of the user or you when you're chatting to, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, it doesn't matter, right?
You're not giving them access to your entire wallet.
You're not, but you're doing this. You're saying, here's the ability for you to make a payment.
Uh-huh.
and it comes with this vetted back and forth structure where it's almost like the padlock on a website when you go to Amazon or whatever, right? Same structure behind it for the actual transaction. And what happens behind the scenes is there's this protocol that the agent, so when you're having the conversation, you can say inside of, your chat interface, show me the top 3 plumbers in Georgia.
Yep.
I don't know how that's relevant. No one would search that way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll pick Atlanta, whatever. It's fine. Show me the top 3. Now, I don't know what that would really do anybody, because what does that mean, top 3? But it's going to answer you no matter what, right? And it's going to use your website information to answer. And if your website includes prices, that's going to be included in the answer. And it may not necessarily say it will cost, especially if your website's intelligent. It says things like, consultation starting at, $99 or whatever. I don't care about the details, but the idea is you've got to put something out there because your competitors will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from a service business perspective, there's still a bunch of discussion going on, and the protocols are still evolving about how this would work, because it'll probably be the agent will reach out to the contact on your website or an email address you provided or whatever that looks like. But if you were selling a product, the actual agent will attempt to purchase the product via the protocol so that the end user, and this is where things start to get a little interesting from my perspective. So the end user can say, show me the top 3 hubcaps for my car, I don't know, whatever. And they say, okay, great, buy the first one. And then you move on to the next thing you're trying to do. And you don't say, the agent knows your address. The agent has your ability and authorization to make a purchase via a secure payment gateway. And it's done. You said go.
Here's how that's going to go into effect, like Amazon, because Amazon's thing, it used to be pricing, and then it was like next day shipping, but now they've moved our shipping out to 3 and 4 days a week sometimes, and then now it's purely convenience. Like for me, it's not pricing anymore because more often than not, I'll find that the prices are more on Amazon than they are at a local shop, or at least another online retailer. But for me, it's convenience right now and the ease of looking up the part again in the future. So, like, if I need to reorder it or something or warranty issue, but that's gonna go away with that sort of agent.
Right. So, couple comments, right? First one is, if you can do that, why are you going to the Amazon website as often? Because you're just going to be in your chat doing your thing anyway, A. B, Amazon refused the offer from OpenAI to be part of the commerce model for ChatGPT, and Walmart said, we'll do it. So Amazon is currently seemingly expecting to keep everybody inside the Amazon garden and not allow Amazon to be listed on a competitor's chat site from a product perspective, which sounds weird to me.
Yeah. No, that makes sense though, because I've had conversations. I was rebuilding one of my PCs. So like I built a supercomputer about 10 years ago. We all know that even a supercomputer 10 years ago is basically what you can buy off the shelf at this, today. But I knew that I wanted a new PC for using OpenClaw because I didn't want I didn't want to do
Careful.
it on my PC.
Yeah, but also careful, because boy, oh boy, is that a nightmare.
It is.
We can talk about it. It's fine, but
No, I've been learning that.
yeah.
So basically, I put all of my stuff inside of a project inside of ChatGPT, and so I already have a project for like my office because I have so many different PCs in my office, routers. I have a NAS system, so I have just a full project with each part and everything else in it. So I started another thread inside the project, and it was like, all right, so you want to change your GPU over to this GPU because the one I had was for graphics. It was a massive graphics GPU for video games and stuff, and 4K video editing. But I was like, okay, cool. Give me an Amazon link. It would not give me an Amazon link. It gave me every link but Amazon. And I was like, you are bound and determined for me not to purchase this on Amazon, which was actually fine because I found the GPU for $75 cheaper from this other website. The problem with the other website is just the trust, the lack of trust. And like with Amazon, if the GPU didn't show up in 5 days, I just message Amazon and say, hey, send me another one because it never showed up. But even that's not accurate anymore. It's not like the way it used to be.
No, it's not. One of the things that I know OpenAI is doing in this particular case, I'm sure the others will do the same thing. I only know about the OpenAI one, is they're vetting the individual vendors for products that ChatGPT will show.
Oh, well, that makes
through this protocol.
That makes me feel better.
Right. So what would happen in this context is you would ask, ChatGPT, hey, I need a graphics card that I can use to run local AI models. Just
Mhm.
if we just make
That's
that
it.
simple conversation, that's pretty what you asked. And if it comes back and says, okay, here's 3 choices and 3 prices, and you pick, there's a component here where you don't even need to know the vendor.
Yeah.
Like you don't actually necessarily need to care most of the time. And
It's
like
not
if
weird, but
it's
I
not
mean,
relevant, but
really does.
like let's say you're buying a brand name and it's already a brand you want.
Yeah.
By Dawn Dish, I don't know, whatever, right? It doesn't matter it doesn't matter if it was CVS or Walmart or Best Buy. Who cares?
Yep.
If it's the price you wanted to pay and it'll drive when you want, buy and off you go. And if it came from Amazon or it came some other way, you really don't care in
Yeah.
the end,
Exactly.
right? I mean, if you're an Amazon stockholder, maybe you care. But the point is, I think that structurally the shopping model is going to change wildly as this happens because it looks like AI and chat is here to stay. And so, we're early days now, right?
It's wild to think that because literally 2 years ago, it was like just night and day different the way it is right now.
It completely. The analogy I like to make for folks is in 2007, Apple comes out with the iPhone.
Dang, I can't believe it was 2007.
2007. The biggest thing about the iPhone at that point in time was not that it was a cell phone, was not that it was email. Blackberries had been out for a while and were very popular.
Yep, I had one.
But there were others like Palm, and there were other ways to do it. And it was not that you could text. It was the fact that it actually ended up being a platform. But if you look at and this accelerated like mad for us now, but if you look back in 2007 era, you're looking at 3 technologies that were ancient that were combined in order to make a platform to allow. So cell phones had come out in the 70s. If you go really back to Motorola, right?
Old bag phones.
Exactly, right. Those existed in limited form and at foolish expense, right? But that technology was not. 2007 was a long ways away from its inception, over a couple decades, right? Same thing with the idea behind email. That was an 80s kind of thing. DARPANET first, then ARPANET, then internet. But by the time you get to 2007, email is how business is done at that point, well into the commonality. Now I want to do it mobilely. Okay, I get you, right? Wi-Fi shoots out around 2003, give or take. So by 2007, your phone can do Wi-Fi, and that's great. But when you're driving down the road, having internet over cellular was insanity. I'm just bringing back all these crazy things. But
I remember
the
that.
idea is it's the convergence of all these. So then Apple creates this platform. Android also does the same thing. Google buys Android, blah, blah, blah. Fine. My point is simply this. The technological innovation is the LLM and the AI and the chat. They're trying to make them all be platforms.
Do you think that's gonna happen? I mean, they're
What,
like,
what a prognostication question to ask, right? I mean, yeah, of course you want that answer. I think it's this. I think I'll keep the analogy going. Nokia had a platform,
oh yeah,
right? There were all kinds of apps you could do on a Nokia phone. AT&T, BlackBerry, they all had their own gardens, but it took the app store where everybody could participate and all these different apps could show up. What made the iPhone amazing was the apps, not it's a cell phone. Because in the very beginning, iPhones kind of sucked at a lot of things, right? Even the first iPhone didn't even have copy paste. Like you couldn't do that, but nobody needed it at the time. Or if you needed it tough, you couldn't until they grew, right? But the point is this. Gemini is going to try and make a platform. Microsoft's making Copilot be a platform everywhere they possibly can and shoving it down people's throats, even if you don't want it. OpenAI is going to do the same thing. So will Anthropic with Claude and so on and so on.
I mean, the Perplexity browser thing that sucked. By the way, I don't know if it's any better now, but like last year when I tried it, I was like, oh no thanks.
But again, this is all everybody trying to make a play for. I want to be more than the thing. So Perplexity being, semantic search, which is really neat. And I actually like Perplexity in a lot of ways. Claude is super powerful and does some really, really awesome things. I'm actually a big fan of Claude. Gemini 2, I actually think if people played with different models, and this is one of the things that I tend to do, especially with clients, I like to take clients and have them look at platform providers that allow you to change models rather than,
Like a Magi.
so that's one, right? There's one that I use often called simtheory.ai. Just happens to be a name, like simulation theory.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of other providers that aren't providing their own LLM. They're providing like a gateway with a chat and
Do they allow you to
features.
have a local also, or?
So the problem with local AI is most people don't have the correct hardware. Let's get into that for a sec. It's a good question, right?
That's exactly why I took my TC to do that, because I wanted local LM.
A lot of folks would first say, "Oh, why do I want to run a local LLM?"
IP.
So the very big driver for most folks is privacy,
Yeah.
security. But if you say OpenClaw, you've destroyed both privacy and security because it's neither of those.
Yeah,
Just so
yeah,
we're clear.
you got completely rid of them.
But there are a couple interesting applications. Some are open source, some are subscription, that let you run models locally as well as use cloud models. And this, I think, is more in a long-term approach. Here's what I mean. There's a thing, I think, for Macs called, I think it's called Osiris. It's like OSAURUS. And there's another one, there's an open source one that runs on all platforms, whose name I can't remember at the moment. So if I remember the next the beginning of the podcast, I'll tell you again. But you install the thing locally, and you can put in credentials to use your ChatGPT, your Claude, your whatever, if you've got an account there, and then it talks via the API and you have your chats. You can also download and install local models like an Olama instance would let you do.
Yeah.
So Llama 4, Mistral, any of those open source guys.
Yep.
And there's a whole bunch of them. I'm not naming them all on purpose.
Well, that's the two popular ones. That's the two that I have.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. It's common. But the way it works is you have the chats that you don't think you need a lot of privacy and security for. So you're just asking generic questions or you're asking for research or whatever. And then you have the chats where you want to talk about local documents and do manipulation, and you don't want to share that with any of the vendors because all these vendors are turning into the same thing as social platforms where they just take everything they can get from you to try and sell it for ads, right? Okay. So what you do then is you just have these chats are done with the local model. These chats are done with the cloud models. And the vast majority of the time, the cloud models are way, 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 way faster.
If you're running an agent to do this stuff, it doesn't necessarily matter the speed as much.
It doesn't.
Like, especially if you're saving money from it, because that was
the cost, the execution cost.
Yeah.
Especially from a cloud perspective. Totally agree. The problem is, you've done it because you went and built a machine to specifically run AI stuff.
Right.
But most people run the laptop they have.
Yeah. No,
which isn't going to work, right? There's the Macs have a little bit of an advantage, a small one here.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of the way the shared memory model works on a Mac. I don't want to get into a hardware conversation too deep, but if you buy a Mac with a decent amount of memory, you can run models that are, because the models aren't small and you need a lot of memory to run models. I don't want to waste too many people's time here, but those Macs are not inexpensive. You're going to spend a couple $1,000s by the time you're done. And if you're trying to run like a background agent or whatever, you probably don't want it on your Mac that you might be closing and that's not the right answer. The answer is have a desktop or whatever.
It's on there.
Exactly. Right. By the way, for the future, if you're going to build another one, PCPartPicker.com.
Oh, I need to write that down.
It will let you find the best price for the different parts anywhere across all vendors on the internet. It will also not let you pick incompatible parts. So if this CPU and this motherboard don't go together, it won't let you do it.
Literally a cooler for my
right, exactly. PC Part Picker will do all that for you.
I ordered the one for my new tower.
Yeah.
Not thinking about the fact the motherboards are completely different.
Yeah, it didn't work.
It
had this one.
No,
yeah. PC Part Picker will help. Level 5 nerd. I don't know what the right answer is here, but
okay.
I've built hundreds of computers.
Uh-huh.
PC Part Picker is your friend. Also, there's a bunch of existing builds you can just look at and go, oh, look, someone did all this, and here's all the compatible pieces. Click. Let me just have that as a shopping list.
Yeah.
So, and it'll find what rebates going on at this vendor versus that vendor. It'll end up showing you buy it here, buy it there, buy it there.
Yeah, that's what's up right there.
It's a really cool tool. I've sent them money many times. I've used them for years and they helped a lot. Diverge like mad there. But I think a lot of folks don't I think running a local model is probably off the beaten path for most users.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that I 100% agree with that. The other thing is making sure it doesn't turn off because like I'm in Seattle trying like, and then we have a power surge here or something like that. Like, so I had to invest in battery backups and everything
Yep.
else. And
Yep. Well,
auto,
and that's why
I
the
mean,
cloud,
yeah,
there's a trade-off, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're in Seattle, you have the same access to the cloud that you get from home, blah, blah, blah.
exactly.
You could still run your local model in the cloud. You would, there's,
You can rent some AWS space.
yeah, I wouldn't do that. The hyperscalers are foolishly expensive. I'll give you a little secret. There's a company called runpod.io, and
Okay.
they basically let you rent cloud-based GPUs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So think of it this way, Tersh. You write your agent to run on your local whatever, but you make a call to a llama running a runpod on a 48 gig GPU, and you only pay for the API use to run that, and then it spins down when your agent comes back and just does local calculation. And like, I know you've outfitted yourself. I'm not trying to,
Well,
I'm
no,
not trying to change your whole world here. I'm just telling you there's other ways.
I'm always down for better ways of doing things. And like for me, the like, so I wanted some security aspect of it. That's why I ran it versus on my own PC.
Yeah.
I also wanted to make sure that, man, I have a 128 terabyte NAS system that is halfway full right now. And majority of that, I would say at least half of that is duplicates and triplicates of same stuff. I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna pay a VA to do this. So if I can build a bot that can somehow manage that, and not only that, I have podcast episodes from 4 years ago that might be 60 gigs each between all of the video recording and the audio stuff, and then duplicate files inside of there, and then editor files and all this other crap that can be compressed. And like I've never gone through and compressed any of the documents and stuff like that. So
Have you ever heard of Dupe Guru?
no.
I'm just throwing all kinds of stuff
No,
at you
this is
today.
great. I love this.
Just
Go on a
search for
podcast and learn like,
Dupe Guru.
uh-huh.
It's open source software, runs on every platform, and it will help you find duplicates, and it will work across your NAS drive from your machine.
And Google Drive.
That's interesting.
Google Drive on my Windows. And the other thing is I'm not a huge Linux user, but the server that I built out, I wanted it to be on
Of
Linux.
course. Yeah, sure. Yeah. To do all the right things. I think if you had Google Drive installed locally,
Yeah.
as a local, resource in like Windows, let's say, might be possible for Dupe Guru. I've never done it, so I can't say, but it might be possible for it to look at it and source it.
You know.
Yeah, it might be possible. But but that tool will definitely help you figure that out, and it'll automate as opposed to you having to do anything manual.
That's right.
It'll save you some amount of time. I don't know how much, but it doesn't matter.
Even the duplicate ones, they're like, you need to go in and manually review every one of these duplicate files. And I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that.
Not at all.
This is just as bad as if I would have done it manually.
Well, the other thing that you could do, right, from an IT perspective, there's a mantra that's not easy for people to grasp, but it kind of works like this. 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none. And it's the backup mantra. And it basically means
I agree with that.
if you don't have 3 copies, you don't have a copy.
Yeah.
And then if you get into, high grade protection, what you're looking at is you have 2 copies and the third copy must be somewhere physically different.
Like on an external hard drive or something like that?
No, like in another building, somewhere physically completely different. Because if you've got 2 copies, but they're both in the same house and there's a fire, you have no copies.
Well, the other thing is majority of what I have are past episodes or events or keynotes. So they're not that important. It's not like we're having securities of clients' information or anything like that on our NAS system. So is more of a digital asset management tool, and that's very gotten out of control. The more people we've hired on for the podcast production company, at first we didn't have a systematized file naming system.
Yeah.
Everybody just did it their own way, and then I got to where I was like, no, if I have to click more than 3 times to find anything, like I don't want to go 6 levels deep in one file folder to get one image and then finding the images after the event's over because they all got put in that event folder instead of like an actual, you know, folder for it. Or like, you're chuckling, you know my pain point.
Oh, absolutely. I've gotten to the point where I've had to create, specifically with, large enterprise, but I've had to create server and client naming conventions in order to understand what's out there and be able to look and go, oh, I understand what that is,
Yeah.
which doesn't seem like something you would ever need to do. But again, at an enterprise level, you're talking about hundreds of systems easily.
Not even at enterprise level. Like I go into a building and let's call it a 15 or $18 million a year revenue home service company. And they may have 15, 20 people in the office. And if you have 20 people with 20 different file naming ideas or whatever, then
You never find anything.
you'll never find
'Cause you
anything.
don't know what's what. Yeah,
The person
completely.
that made it is like, "Oh, yeah, it's right here, duh, like, this is where we go every day." I'm like, "No, not duh, because you stay in it every day. It doesn't make sense to me."
Exactly. It's funny, the more hands in the pot, the more process you need, right?
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I guess
And
that's the
everybody's like, "I'm
profound.
tired of processes," but that's when I do an on-site, that's one of like, optimize, automate, delegate. That's it. Like, that's what I tell everybody, like, before we automate a process, we gotta make sure this process is optimized. And if we can't automate this process and it's something that doesn't add value to your day, like, let's delegate it. But we can't delegate it until we've optimized it because if we delegate a poorly optimized process, then you're gonna get a lot of crap back.
There's an engineering adage that I would throw at you just to help you with this, along the same veins, but it's beware of early optimization. Now, the problem is I think optimize is being used in a couple different ways.
Yes.
But for example, you don't want to automate a process that you can delete,
That too. Do we need the process? That's like,
right?
is it Elon Musk that's got the 5 steps?
That's
Like,
part of the problem.
yeah.
And what Elon's dealing with most of the time when he's talking about this, it's physical hardware, right? Sometimes he's talking about like the Tesla building process where, there's a part here, we have to find a 7-step thing to put in place. Do we need the part? No one asks that question, right? That's what he means by early optimization. The first part, don't optimize it yet. Figure out if we need it.
Are we doing it just because we've done it for 20 years?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's like, I can tell you firsthand, any company struggles with this, especially the longer they're around, right? That's the way we've always done it.
Oh, man, that will make
That's a
my
deadly
kids
phrase,
feel so
right?
depressed. Like, that's
Because,
how it was when I got here, or that's how we've always
right.
done it. Like,
Well, I don't know. Bob's the only one that knows anything about that, and Bob left 3 years ago or
yeah,
whatever, right? That sort of
exactly.
stuff. And it takes someone who is willing to ask the questions that no one asks, because people are very resistant to change for a lot of good reasons. There's a lot
Yeah.
of psychological reasons. I don't, I'm not suggesting change is the only way,
The only th
but
the only thing that's consistent with me is change.
yes, and that's the way the world works. But a lot of people resist.
Oh, yeah.
The second piece of that, from my perspective, is not a lot of people question why enough,
You're right.
right?
I think they
And
should ask it 5 times.
And things like, okay, I work with a client. What are your problems? Problems. Okay. Why is this a problem?
Yeah.
Well, well, you're not telling me why.
Really a
You're
problem.
telling me what the problem is,
Yeah.
but tell me why. Well, it takes so long. And then, okay, there are plenty of ways to do that. Why aren't you doing it a different way? Oh, that's just the way we do it. This is the question you haven't asked yourself. Why don't you do it a different way? Et cetera, et cetera. And, maybe you don't have the skill. Maybe there's a technical reason. Like, it's okay. That's why we exist, to try and help out. It's fine. But I don't see people asking that question as much. And a lot of the time, especially when we're talking about very deep technical stuff, right? They don't even know that they could, like, the cloud GPU was a new thing for you. Didn't know it was an option. You hadn't explored it. Okay. So you didn't know to ask.
Yeah.
Well, how could you? I mean, you can't know everything. Neither
You
can
don't
I.
know what you don't know until you know it.
Right. And that's why sometimes it's worth the value of getting a hold of that expert and getting, it's a little bit of money, but when people know what they're talking about in the service business, the exact same thing. How many times have you had to go fix a homeowner, I'll do it myself project that turns out, no, I needed a pro from the beginning. And,
Yeah.
at a certain point in time, you just learn, I'm not good at that. I'm just calling. Right.
You hope that somebody picks up on that. Sometimes they just are a glutton for punishment.
I mean, I applaud folks who want to try and fix their own stuff and learn certain things. And I think that a lot of things are, homeowner capable to a certain level.
Yeah.
And then, no, not so much. Like, we'll end this on a really funny note. I have
Yeah.
a toilet that's been around for a long time, and I've replaced the innards of the toilet many times. The seal, it's a two-piece toilet.
Yep.
The seal for between the tank and the bowl is gone.
That's good.
It's just right, and it's coming apart. And I have looked for 3 weeks to try and find a replacement seal, but this unit is so old,
Oh,
I
really?
can't seem to find it. And
Is
I have ordered replacement
it
parts, like a new tank, just to replace the tank, etc.
Yeah.
They don't line up with the bolt pattern on this.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it. I cannot. It's too old. So I was like, I just have to replace it. I don't have a choice. I've looked.
We
Right?
bank or anything like that? Do you know? Like it's
I did a ton of research. I used some AI chatting. I did a bunch of independent research. I even ordered one off of Amazon that was like, fits most blah, 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 just to try.
yeah. What brand is it?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay, yeah. I was
Can't
just
remember what it is.
like a Toto or something like that. But
The way I've resolved this problem, which will resolve in about 4 days, is I ordered a completely new unit from Lowe's, and the plumber's coming Monday because I'm just not bothering with I'm not replacing the toilet on my own because I have other things to do.
yeah, at some points you just like, all right, is it worth the ROI of me doing this?
This is the point, right? And so, like, I was willing to change the tank. I put a gasket in, like, I got all that. We're going to change the whole toilet. Goodbye. I've had
Well,
enough.
that's the thing, like me going into a business and same with you, like, is it worth these business owners and also at what point in the stages of business is it worth just hiring someone else to do it? But then if you hire someone else to do it, so like I have this friend of mine who hired a quote unquote Zapier expert. They were going to be their
Yeah.
automation guru
Yeah.
internally. And that person, while they were pretty good with Zapier, they didn't know the CRM at all. So
Okay.
my friend paid to have them trained up and trained really well,
Oh.
and they left. And
Yeah.
the
Because
owner
now they're a Zapier and CRM expert.
exactly, and then they
Yeah.
marketed themselves, started their own business,
Of
and
course
that's what
they
they're
did.
doing for other
Yeah,
companies.
yeah.
And this guy paid for that to happen. And so, like, now he's gun shy. He's like, "I will never hire an internal person again. I'll only hire people like you to come in and do these things for me." And I'm like, "Yeah,
I mean, the pendulum swung the other way, and at some point he might get burned with a vendor, and he'll maybe come back to the middle. It's the way the world works, right? But
but he doesn't wanna learn it himself." Like, he's like, "I just it's a really cool concept. I'm just really good at financials, and I don't wanna learn automation." I'm like, "Okay, fair enough."
I honestly think vast majority of business owners, I don't think, I mean, depends, if you're a solopreneur, maybe this is the right answer, but if you're running a business with decent headcount and decent revenue, you have other things to focus on. Learning how to be an AI engineer is probably not the right place to go. And maybe long term, hiring your own internal AI nerd makes sense. But I think you start with using consultants, finding good strategic wins that are relatively small in scope so you can get a feel for the value in the ROI and decide to like, I don't think you should buy a big 6-figure AI renovation of your whole company. I think that's foolish. And I don't think you should hire someone immediately and be like, you're our AI dude forever, because you don't know if you need AI that much. Like that, right? So
It's a framework. Like, we were talking about that earlier in the episode. Like, I believe that we have 2 opposite ends of the pendulum. We have those who are like, "Hey, we're just gonna wait until this stuff gets figured out, and then we're just gonna figure it out at that point because I don't wanna learn 7 different platforms because one's gotten better than the other." And then you have the other end of the pendulum where it's like, "Hey, we've already hired 3 AI specialists, and they're gonna learn while they work for me." And I'm like, "Okay, I get it." But when I talk to people and they're like, "Hey, I'm checking out this Claude for the first time. Have you heard of Claude before?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard of Claude. Like, I have it on my phone and Gemini and Grok and ChatGPT." And they're like, "You have all of those on your phone?" I was like, "Yeah, they all do different things." Like, if I want an image created really quickly, I can just go to Nano Banana inside of Gemini on my phone and just pop it up real fast. And, like, if I want analysis done on an Excel spreadsheet or a document, I'm throwing that in the Claude. And, like, if I just like ChatGPT knows me personally, and that's the other problem with not having a local LLM is that, like, I'm conversing with ChatGPT all day, every day, or might be Claude, and they're learning my personality or as best they can learn the personality.
Yeah.
Now I'm having to go back and redo the entire thing with my local LLM. And like basically ChatGPT either owns or has access to my intellectual property. And I don't know if you've seen this or not. I haven't personally seen it, but I've read and watched that ChatGPT now has a health tab where you upload all your health documents
Yeah, it does.
and it does like analysis for you, which is great.
Which
Like,
is convenient, but also
yeah, like HIPAA, like how are we, because you're giving it information, technically you're letting it.
I'm a security nerd, so this I'll never use any of these things this way. I'll run local stuff, or I won't use them for that purpose. I understand why it's convenient, and I understand why people are like, why do I care? And I get it. Some people don't, and it's a choice. I don't begrudge the choice either way, but I do think it is a slope, and I'm not a happy one.
Yeah,
Not one I want to jump on.
when I do presentations, I tell people all the time, like, hey, we really need regulations in this space, but I just want it to wait until after I'm finished building my AI tool.
Just think of it this way, though. Whatever you build in 6 months will be out of date.
It is. And I mean, I started building this out 18 months ago, over 18 months ago now. Well, actually 20 months ago. And the first 18 months, like slow moving, slow. And then all of a sudden, December, January, February, poof, hockey stick, like crazy how fast things have gone since then. So, yeah.
And what I was saying before, we're still early days. This technology is still nascent. It's just going to continue to get better. Today is the worst day AI is going to perform for you.
Yeah,
you can say that every day.
That's crazy.
And maybe that's where we end it for now.
Yeah.
All right, man. It's been great talking to you.
Same.
Thanks very much.
Absolutely.